My last question, do you think that there's a faith or a religious component in the call for inclusive communities? You sort of answered that already, but I wanted to ask that question specifically.
Well, for me, I think, my faith and my spiritual life drives everything that I do. Mm-hmm. And I think that, that's the great call in a pure way, which is why I think Pope Francis is so great, because he really goes back, I think, to really the basic teachings of Jesus Christ and wants to live much more closely the way Jesus Christ lived and walked on the earth. And I think in a very pure and clean and simple and real way, and not caught up in the vestments and the hoopla and the money and the buildings. And I think really wanting to reach out to the poor and reach out to the sick and reach out to people of difference, I think, and people who have special gifts from God that are really different than you or my gifts, but they're gifts from God. And I think he's very interested in those things and seems to have, expressed that in a personal way and spends his time doing those kinds of things. And I think that's the challenge and that's the call of our church. And I think it saddens me, several things that the church does, but as it relates specifically to this, it's sad because I think, the challenge of Jesus is to welcome every one of his children into the church, and the educational component of the church is a gigantic part of the overall church. Mm-hmm. And I think to have, people with special needs welcomed in the Mass and participating in the Mass, and then not have them play a role in education, I think as Christians, we're missing the boat big time, and we're not following the challenge that Jesus Christ lays out to us every day to welcome and to be open to and to accept them all, whether they're people with special needs or whether they're people like me or people like you. It doesn't really matter. They all need to play a role, and they all enrich the overall Christian experience. And I think we need to continue to fight and battle and figure out a way, to get them not only to play a role in the Mass, but to play a role in the educational institutions that the Catholic Church is so successful at building on a global scale. They're some of the greatest educators that the world has ever seen. They've built some of the most impressive institutions anywhere in the world. So they know how to educate, and they know how to build great educational institutions. But as Jesus Christ said, every institution that is built in his name needs to be welcoming to all.